Hi everyone, and welcome back to the George Collection. I'm Rachel Rightside Blonde. Let's talk about school uniforms. At the local high school, supposedly there is no dress code. Therefore, there are kids wearing whatever they please, whenever they want, at these schools. Recently, it came to my attention there is a high school girl wearing little boy boxer briefs to school. I'm talking like short, spandex, very tiny little shorts. Minecraft, mind you. On top of that, she's wearing a tank top, very low cut, and that's what she's wearing to school. Now, I'm all about self-expression, but I feel like we all can agree that that's probably taking things a little too far. After all, aren't we supposed to go to school to learn and not make new fashion statements made out of little boy boxer briefs? What do you think? Comparing what I went through in the public school system to what my kids are going through in the private school system is night and day when it comes to the school uniform situation. When I was growing up, it was waking up, trying to find clothes that first of all fit me, because most of them were hand-me-downs from my sisters, but clothes that would help me feel like I fit in with my friends. And oftentimes, well, let's just say I wouldn't have been called fashionable in middle school or high school, probably not college either. My kids, on the other hand, they wake up, they have 3 or 4 options of tops and bottoms to wear, they can get themselves dressed, there is no hassle in the morning, and they know that when they go to school, everyone else is going to be wearing similar clothing. There are no distractions, they go to school to learn, and everyone looks the same. It's awesome for the principals and the teachers because they don't have to worry about a kid wearing something completely inappropriate. The August 1996 issue of George talks about chic school uniforms and brings up a lot of great points on the topic of school uniforms. So I thought I would read this to you so you could form your own opinion. Here we go. And before I start, I just want to remind you that President Clinton, a Democratic president, called for school uniforms back in the 90s. So what has happened from the 1990s to 2023, where kids are wearing Minecraft boxer briefs to school with a low-cut tank top? The article begins, "A fashionable response to President Clinton's call for school uniforms." President Clinton's State of the Union address last January was notable, not only for its relative brevity, but also for its championing of a concrete remedy to the deterioration of the educational system, school uniforms. Cognizant of recent reports of a decrease in violence and truancy in public school districts where school dress codes were enforced, the president signed on to the idea, enhancing his emerging image as a tough-minded, socially conscious moderate. A month later, addressing a Long Beach, California grade school, Clinton called for an end to teenagers killing each other over designer jackets. Statistics showed, he said, that there had been a dramatic decrease in violence and suspensions in that school district after the introduction of uniforms. He therewith instructed the Department of Education to supply all the nation's 16,000 public school districts with manuals on implementing a school uniform policy. Many school districts didn't need the manual. In California, more than 10% of schools already had some kind of uniform program. About 10% of New York City public schools also participate, and in Chicago, it's close to 50%. Department stores such as JCPenney, Sears, and Target have reported dramatic upswings in school uniform sales, and some branches say they are struggling to keep up with the demand for plaid skirts, white Oxford shirts, and navy blue trousers. Call it Catholic school chic. Ironically, this change comes at a time when the fashion industry, too, has been experimenting with uniforms, with designers like Prada, Gucci, and other houses sending ultra-conformist looks down the runway. Given fashion's excesses over the past decade, these styles are as startling in their severity as Gianni Versace's leather-strap bondage gear was in its outrageousness. Muses are all well and good, but now fashion seeks foot soldiers, too. It's a trend that seems almost to mock or challenge the public's constant berating of fashion designers for creating clothes that aren't wearable. Some fashion magazines, in their capacity as middlemen between the fashion industry and the buying public, have lately extolled the ease of finding, say, summer's perfect uniform, and they surely would endorse the federal manual's allowance for accessorizing with such expressive items as political buttons or religious insignia. Clinton's re-election platform will probably continue in this same style, putting what is wearable above all else. With his history of making promises that are tough to keep, Clinton in the '96 campaign is playing it safe, moderate, avoiding such potentially explosive topics as healthcare reform or the White House hairstyle budget. In making designer merchandise a public enemy, Clinton is merely riding the same conservative wave that brought him kudos for favoring restrictions on TV violence. Not only do school uniforms appear to cut down on violence in the halls and prejudice in classrooms, but children on the whole seem not too miserable about wearing them. Some even prefer it. For those in their now 30s, who went through adolescence during the millennium's fashion nadir, the mid-1970s, a uniform or a hefty bag for that matter would have provided welcome relief. But with uniforms comes the boredom of uniformity, and even the most fashion cherry can get tired of a white shirt and navy pants. With that in mind, we asked a handful of the fashion industry's brightest talents to design uniforms that one might be happy to wear instead of enduring the daily ritual of donning the apparel equivalent of Brussels sprouts. A few designers managed to stitch a comment or two on their sleeves, with a provocative pink jumpsuit and plastic trench coat that announces its wearer as part of a flamboyant fashion army. The article then goes on to give some ideas that these fashion designers came up with for these school uniforms, and the article finishes with, other designers such as Giorgio Armani and Tommy Hilfiger seemed to toy with the president's wishes by sewing their company names where the school name traditionally goes, Armani High, if you will. The question that remains, which will Chelsea wear? I think the topic of everyone wearing a school uniform should be debated. In a school setting, it just makes sense to have everyone wear the same clothing because they're there to learn. There are positives and there are negatives, as there are to most arguments. But on the pro side, I think they far outweigh the negatives, which is that kids would feel uniform. When you're in school and you're there to learn, you shouldn't be distracted by boxer briefs. Just my opinion. What do you all think? School uniforms, or should we allow kids to wear whatever they please, wherever they please? I'd love to know your thoughts. That does it for this episode of the George Collection. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time.
Magazine, George, which is a hoot of a magazine. I thought you were a lawyer.
I was.
What happened?
Well, we decided, actually taking a cue from folks like yourself and you around the 1992 election, that there was an opportunity here to change the definition of a political magazine. Certainly the way Americans were accessing information about politics and politicians was changing. Candidates were appearing on late-night talk shows, on talk radio, on sitcoms, and there was a kind of a leveling process, and while the rest of media clearly had caught up with that, we felt that political magazines per se hadn't.
Your mother was a hell of an editor at Doubleday.
That's what I hear.
Would she have liked George?
I think she would have.